And the wise ones asked the old king, "Where is the child born to be king? For we have seen his star in the east at its rising, and have come to give him homage." A very dumb question. Those wise men apparently did not know that you never ask the old king where the new king is to be born. Never. Not a good idea. Nada. But maybe they were simply undone by all the gold and glitter, the torches, the oil lamps, the way the light flickered off the swords and the shields in Herod's court. It's easy to get seduced by such light. It can even block out the light of a star, the star they'd been following. "We've been following his star," the wise ones said. And in saying that, they are putting themselves in line with the whole Christmas story. Because from start to finish, the Christmas story is a story not of people staying in one place, but of getting up and having to go someplace else. Mary and Joseph. Just because Caesar over in Rome, hundreds, thousands of miles away, said that all the world should be enrolled because he wanted to register his empire, they had to pack up the diapers and the baby wipes and all the paraphernalia that you came with and travel from Nazareth all the way down to Bethlehem. People on the move. For whatever reasons, that heavenly host was moved to descend from heaven down to earth and fill the night sky above those shepherds with glory, with light, and with song, saying, "Get up, leave your sheep, go into Bethlehem and see what God is doing." And this story, the story of wise ones from the east, or wise men who saw a star in the east. At this point, Matthew's gospel does not get specific. We don't even know if there were 3 of them. There may have been 5. I once led a Christmas pageant with a bunch of 5th grade boys. We were not going to mediate how many of them were going to be wise ones and how many weren't. So we had 7 wise men that year. Only 2 shepherds, but 7 wise ones. Do the math. We don't know a whole lot of details about this story. It is not a story that is scientific, even though science has tried for years, millennia if you will, to figure out what really happened. What really happened. But we know that somehow those magi were moved by their curiosity, by their scientific inquiry as astronomers, by boredom at home, we don't know, to pack up their camels and their whole entourage and go follow that star. So we know that the star guided the wise ones, according to the story. But my question to you today is, what guided the star? What caused that star to move across the heavens? And was it even a star? For thousands of years, people have been trying to figure this out. Scholars, preachers, academics, scientists, astronomers. And there's all kinds of answers. Early on, a few hundred, maybe 1,000 or so years after the birth of Christ, people thought it had been a comet. The Italian painter Giotto painted a very famous scene of the Nativity with a comet above the stable. But comets don't last for very long in our sight. Plus, there was no scientific record of a comet until 150 years after Jesus' birth. Then other astronomers have thought maybe it was a supernova, an exploding star. As one astronomer says, a huge, huge star in its death throes. One last big burst before it vanishes. But if it had been that, it would only have lasted for a short time. Not long enough for those astronomers, those magi, to pack up everything and take that long journey. And in more recent years, in the last, say, century or so, there's been speculation that maybe what they saw in the heavens wasn't a star at all, but the configuration of 3 planets, Venus, Jupiter, and Saturn. Because 3 years before Christ's birth was recorded, there was also a recording of those 3 planets that don't normally come all together, showing up in the evening sky just before pitch black. And maybe it was all those planets coming together that actually 3 years ago did the same thing. In December of 2020, there was the coming together of those 3 planets. And in fact, we set up telescopes down here at the church to look at them. Maybe it was that. We don't know. We don't know. Now, most of you know, many of you know, I am a very strong believer in science. And I'm also a strong believer in scientists, since I was raised by scientists, both my parents and also my older sister. And so I have a great deal of respect for science, for scientific inquiry. I delight in new discoveries, whether it's a new vaccine to help heal human disease, or a new species that we need to protect, or a new way of looking at the universe, or a new way to heal human bodies. Science is incredible. But let's not read the Bible as a science book. It tells another truth. And we can hold both in our hearts and in our minds. And so this story about Magi following a star, yeah, maybe it was just the configuration of planets, some kind of cosmic energy. Maybe it was a series of dying stars that lit up the heavens. We don't know. All we know is that something compelled those wise ones to follow some kind of phenomenon in the heavens that kept them on the move. And for me, at least, the answer to all of that is not found in science. Or maybe it's found both in science and in mystery. Because, as any scientist worth their salt will tell you, their knowledge is limited. And there's always more to know, more mystery to engage. What we do know is that those magi got lost, that somehow they got off track and ended up in Herod's court. And when they finally, something alerted them to the fact that it was not where they wanted to be, they found their way again. They must have had an epiphany, even though the story doesn't tell it that way. They must have had some kind of epiphany in Herod's court, standing there, eyeglasses down to the end of their nose, classic absent-minded professor, scientist, figuring out Rubik's Cubes or slide rules or palm pads or whatever they might have been using in those days. But maybe they picked up on Herod's body language, or the fact that all the soldiers got nervous when they asked about the new king. But one way or another, they decided that wasn't where they needed to be. And so they left all that glitter and gold and steel and reflections of power and might, and followed a star down south of Jerusalem 5 miles to a stable in Bethlehem. we know that that star somehow kept guiding them. But what guided that star? Now maybe it was just cosmic energy. Just mere chance that these planets came together, or mere chance that some new thing appeared in the sky. But I put to you today that perhaps what guided that star was what had started this whole thing called the Incarnation and Christmas in motion. As John, the Gospel writer, said, the whole purpose of the Incarnation, Christmas, birth, God taking on human form, it was all guided by one thing. God taking on your life and my life, this human body, these human emotions, the joy, the suffering, the love, the light, the shadow, all of that. John the Gospel writer says, why did God do all of that? Because God so loved the world. So maybe it wasn't just cosmic energy. Maybe it was something as simple and complex and deep and everlasting as love that guided that star. The same love that God must have had to start this whole creation in motion. The same love that God must have had to keep giving all of us second chances. The same love that God must have had to become flesh incarnate, just like you and me. Maybe that's what guided that star. Just like that's what had guided that whole story. Start to finish and beyond finish. Maybe that's what guided us here today. The poet Dante wrote at the very end of 3 books compiled together, Inferno, Purgatorio, Paradiso, into what he called the Divine Comedy, a journey that began down in the very depths of hell, but took him up to the top of heaven itself. And at the very, very end of that, as he's been trying to explain God and how God works and what this world is about and what life is about and what it all is about, and finally his very last word is to say that at the very top of heaven, surrounded by all the sights and sounds of love and life and light, he's just absorbed into, taken up into all of that light. And that he is taken up in the love that moves the sun and all stars. So my friends, maybe it was that love that guided the star, that guided the wise ones, that guided the shepherds, that love that guided Mary and Joseph, and you and me, to yearn for that love, to yearn for that light. Love and light that shine in the darkness, that shine in the shadows, and that shadows have never overcome. Maybe that's what guided the star. Thanks be to God. Amen.